Welcome, 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 everyone. How are you all doing? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever you are. As you log in, please, 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 if you can put in the chat, where are you logging in from? I'm currently based in London. Where do we have you joining us today? Daisy from London as well. London, Hong Kong. Oh, nice. Minnesota, lovely. Plymouth, Ireland, Vietnam. Thank you so much. Mexico, Canada, Chile, Qatar, Netherlands, Minnesota. Oh gosh, we have a very diverse group of people here today. Welcome everybody. It's lovely to have you here with us. My name is Joanna Molina. I'm one of the co-founders of the Intern Group and head of Impact. And at the Intern Group, will help you realize your potential throughout our international internship programs, which could be remote, hybrid, or in-person opportunities. We're going to invite you to take a look at our website to find out all the different internship programs that we offer. My colleague Manami is going to put the link in our chat. Feel free to send an application form and you can speak with one of our admission consultants. Now, before we dive into today's topic, I also want to give a very quick shout out to our open learning platform, which is an entire library of courses that are based on real experiences for your professional development. It is completely free, and I really encourage you to take advantage. In fact, there is one course called Working with Cross-Cultural Teams, which is the same topic we're going to be speaking about today. Manami is going to be sharing the link in our chat soon. So as you can tell, at the Intern Group, we are committed on enhancing your professional development. After this session, you will be able to receive an event certificate to show some takeaway skills from the session. So please make sure to stick around until the end because we're going to send a link and then you can unlock the certificate. Perfect. So I'm excited now to introduce our amazing speakers today. We're going to be sharing their unique experiences. Thank you so much for joining us. We have Jacqueline Karnowski. She's head of agility at LATAM Airlines. We have Rina Hanlon, senior people and operations manager at the Intern Group, and Carolina Zamora, senior vice president and head of Latin America operations at Evaluate Serve. Welcome everybody. How is this going to play out today? So the idea is that we have a very collaborative kind of conversation. We want to receive everyone's questions as well, so please feel free to put them in the chat. We also are going to have a Slido, which is a link where you can put anonymous questions. Maybe you don't want to put your question out there and you're a bit shy, so you can just put it there and we will be able to read it out loud for our speakers. And so the topic that we are covering today is working with multicultural workplace. Let's start with Jacqueline. Jacqueline, what would you say are some common, let's say, challenges that you have encountered in a multicultural workplace? But first, also introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your role.
Great. Yep. I'm Jacqueline. I'm originally from the United States, but live in Chile. And I work at LATAM Airlines, the major airlines in South America. And I am on the .com and mobile app area of the business. So I don't work in airport operations. I don't work with pilots or flight attendants, but we work on the website and the mobile app. And I'm the head of agility, which is the cross-functional area that connects product, engineering, and design so that we work productively and deliver a better quality product every day to our customers. It's a little vague, but we solve problems so that everyone can do their superpowers really well. And I've been there since May. Before that, I was working at Uber, Airbnb, and Fare, some startups you may have heard of. Okay, so the question is around challenges and opportunities with working cross-cultural teams. Right now, for example, I am the only non-Latino in my team, so I am a minority in the team, and then in the United States, in startup worlds, my teams are composed of people from India, China, Vietnam, the US, Canada. So I've had a lot of really great opportunities to work with people from around the world. At Uber, I worked really closely with our India team in engineering. And at my last startup, I worked with a big team of Brazilian engineers based out of Sao Paulo. So I've had a lot of different interactions with different cultures and different languages. And one of my favorite stories, which will lead into where I'm going, is I was leading up engineering productivity and DevOps program. And a bunch of Brazilians started reaching out to me around issues and problems we were having. And I saw the data reflected in some of our workplace surveys and ways of working. And I thought, why are all the Brazilians so mad? Like, what's going on here? And it was the World Cup. And we had all these different meetings and training programs, and none of the Brazilians were going to them. And they were very mad that they had to decide between watching the World Cup and going to training and onboarding programs. And it was a clear indicator that there was dissatisfaction and confusing because it in their families, and it was significant data that the CTO called me and was like, what's going on here? So it was our team. We didn't take into consideration a very big cultural moment, and understanding that soccer comes before work always. And I love that. And I'm okay with that. But we forgot to look at our programs and calendar to understand that the World Cup always is a priority. And so it was a big learning moment for our Canadian CTO that was not so sure of that, but he understood from a hockey understanding that when it's Stanley Cup time for hockey, that also we stop work and we don't have major meetings at that time. So that was a really fun story that happened last year, and it led to a lot of good conversations around how can we better build an inclusive team that honors and recognizes our language, culture, calendars, and events. So that's one story, but we always think about the people first. It's always about the people. Um, and and right now, one of the things that is big for me is I don't speak Portuguese, I speak Spanish, but most of our business is in Brazil in Latam Airlines. And I feel like I'm at a disadvantage because I don't speak Portuguese, and I feel guilty a little bit about asking to speak in English because I don't understand what they're saying. And so it's this what I love about it is it creates more empathy quicker than when you assume everyone speaks the same language or everyone is speaking about the same concepts and values and cultural connections. It requires us all to start with empathy and build a lot of trust and empathy right away I'm okay asking, do you speak English? Or how do we do this? Do we turn on Google Translate? You speak in Portuguese and I speak in Spanish. So it requires a lot of conversations that open us up, and we become more vulnerable and become better colleagues because of it. Um,
Amazing. And thank you for the example. As a Colombian, I can also say it definitely happens. It definitely happens. Rina, I think you have a similar story from the sense of being from North America, even in Chile. Would you like to share a bit about your own challenges, but before as well, what your role is at the internship?
Sure. Yeah, my name is Rena. I work for the intern group. I am the senior people and operations manager, so I head up our HR, our people function here. As many of you might know about the intern group, we are a diverse business. We have colleagues all over the world, I think in around 20 countries. So by nature, we have a lot of opportunities to learn and to grow and to learn about new cultures and really really challenge our assumptions in terms of what we think is the normal or the proper way of doing something, right? So we have that. And I've spent my whole career actually working with high populations of immigrants, refugees, and people internationally in manufacturing, in the sciences and biotech. And I think that, as Jacqueline said, there are challenges, but there are also so many opportunities. I wanted to compliment what Jacqueline said quickly before jumping into anything else, because it made me think of what you were saying, Jacqueline, about the cultural events being considered. I think all of us too, we need to also consider when we're helping decide on timelines and calendars to also consider religious events. If you're in a country where there is a specific recognized holidays in the US, we have a very Christian calendar. Christmas is observed, other holidays are not. And I have a lot of Jewish friends and colleagues that go through this every single year where a calendar is released and their holidays are not considered as a part of the calendar, and it causes a lot of problems, and it really creates a huge discontent among team members. Like Jacqueline was saying, the Brazilians were all angry, they were all upset. This happens yearly for people, so we should all keep in mind different religious events and just try to think really broad when we're thinking about timelines, projects, and all of the different diverse people on our teams. That was more of what I was going to say rather than challenges within Chile.
Perfect. Carolina, welcome to today's panel. Would you like to tell us a bit about your role and also anything you want to contribute towards challenges that you have faced in a company that is also very global?
Yeah, absolutely. So hi, everyone. I'm Carolina Zamora. I am originally from El Salvador, where I was born and raised, but I have lived in many other countries as well before landing in my current country, which I now consider my home, which is Chile. I'm based in Viña del Mar, Chile. I went to university in South Florida in the United States. Then I also did an internship in Quito, Ecuador. And I did my master's program, and I was living and working in the south of Spain for about a year and a half before I came to Chile. So I've had definitely a lot of experience with different cultures. And I'm currently heading the LATAM operations for Evaluator, which is a professional services firm that provides research and analytics and technology solutions to companies around the world. So we have offices in Chile, operations in Colombia, offices in India, China, Romania, the UK, United States, Canada. So every day I work with different cultures, people from different countries, from different nationalities, from different backgrounds. So multicultural experiences is my bread and butter. From the moment that I, wake up to the moment that, I go to bed, and even in my personal life here, my group of friends is very diverse. So and I feel like having this multicultural experience has definitely enriched not just my professional life, but also my personal life. So in terms of challenges, like I have probably gone through it all, from the common misunderstandings to, how different cultures approach time. For some cultures, for example, in Northern Europe and in the US, punctuality is key. Like if you're 5 minutes late to a meeting, you better not show up. Being on time is actually being late. Where, in contrast, some other cultures like Latin America, we tend to be a little bit more relaxed with time. Maybe you start a meeting and you catch up. It's like, hey, how's it going? How are you? How's your family? How's your weather? And then the concept that a meeting is, supposed to last 1 hour is also very flexible. So, sometimes meetings tend to run over. Those are challenges that we face day to day. So especially working in a multicultural company, you have to be mindful of others people times and respect as well, the different backgrounds. So you learn to adapt as well. You learn to, if I'm talking with a colleague from India who's based in India, I have to be mindful that the time difference that for them is 9.5 hours ahead of me, that my morning is probably their evening where they have to like go home and face, I don't know, an hour of traffic. So I'm going to schedule our conversations when it works for them. I'm going to ask them, instead of just sending a meeting calendar, it's like, oh, this looked open on your calendar. I'm going to be like, hey, I have a few options for you. What works best for you? And if a colleague from Latin America wants to ask me about how my weekend was, I am going to, to answer those questions, right? So you learn to adapt, and you learn how to have empathy, and you learn how to respect people's, how to listen to what people are telling you, whether verbally or non-verbally, to adapt your style and show respect to the people that you're interacting with. So in the essence, the challenges are many. They're varied, and sometimes they sneak up on you. Like, you don't necessarily know that there's a challenge, but you learn to adapt your style based on focus, based on empathy, understanding, curiosity, and respect. And in the end, it just becomes second nature to you how to adapt to the different types of people that you're working with.
And I'm glad you just mentioned communication, because we actually have a question slide precisely about that. How can you communicate effectively with people from different cultural backgrounds? We can maybe stay with you, Carolina, if you'd like, or anyone who likes to take this one first.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think effective communication, by the way, it's one of the most important skills that a professional must have in our careers, especially if you're aspiring to have some sort of leadership role in your career, in maybe not now, in the future, right? Effective communication is, in my view, the solution to 90% of the problems that you may encounter. So the fact that to develop effective communication, you need to understand who your audience is. So you have to build that curiosity to understand where they're coming from, what they're telling you, and adapt your communication style accordingly. So you have to be mindful of language barriers, be careful about using too much jargon or too many acronyms. Different countries might not have, or different cultures, or even like different, when we're talking about diversity in generations as well, you might not be using the same lingo, the same slang. So let's use clear, direct language as much as possible. Like I said, pay attention to not just what people are telling you, but how they're saying it, or even the nonverbal cues. So that's when, especially in this hybrid work environment that we have going on, a remote digital work environment, the importance of having either in-person interactions or video interactions is relevant, because we get to see the nonverbal cues. We can see when someone is struggling or disengaged, or just technology issues with the communication, and that's going to impact how our message is getting across. So definitely pay attention to that. Also actively listen to understand the different points of view of where people are coming from. And those are just some tips, to name a few. I'm sure that Jacqueline or Rena have more tips to share.
Yeah, actually, that was the question that I was going to talk about, or the prompt that I was going to talk about, was related to what strategies can help interns build strong relationships on a diverse team, and communication is key. Carolina, you mentioned a lot of things that I 100% agree with. With regards to doing your research, who are you going to be interacting with? Who are you going to be collaborating closely with? Are you going to do an internship abroad, virtual, but what's the main culture there? You mentioned too, not just diversity in terms of culture, but generational, could be gender. There are a lot of different factors that make us who we are and make us all unique. So the biggest thing you can do is do your research and ask questions, right? Don't disregard how important it is to do the research. Read. There's a great book called The Culture Map that we recommend a lot here at the intern group, which really talks about the differences between, like you mentioned too, like does this culture come late to a meeting? Are they more of early? Do they go early to meetings? Goes through are they individualistic society versus very collaborative? There's so many factors, and educating yourself would be really key. I've had to do this personally with regards to working with people from more Eastern cultures. I don't have as much exposure as working with people from Eastern cultures, so I've had to do a lot of research to really break down those communication barriers with somebody from India, for example, somebody from Romania, different cultures like that. So educate yourself, major takeaway. And then researching things too, like the business norms, business practices, greetings. When I was talking to one of my colleagues that I think Carolina Mallory, we were talking about when you work with people in the APAC region, is it customary when you go to a client meeting to bring a gift? How do you greet them? Like knowing these things, it shows as an intern, it would show a lot on your part that you went above and beyond and did the research to understand what is customary. Greetings, email communication, seniority. How do we treat our elders? How do we treat people who are, in different levels? Lunch etiquette, even down to like very simple things like, sharing lunch with team. What does that look like? And ask the questions, ask your manager, and get feedback. Have you noticed anything that I'm doing that might be considered disrespectful? Getting that feedback, asking your colleagues. I think that if you show that interest, even if you have done something that might be considered offensive, you're showing the interest and you're getting the feedback, you're going to help create that effective communication, that trust, that respect, and that will be very impactful. So my first key takeaway for strategies is educate yourself. And I think the second one, it might sound obvious, but really challenge your assumptions. I can't tell you how many times communication issues have boiled down to somebody assumed somebody else knew something, or that something was implied, or that this is just the way things are done. That is not true. There are so many ways to do the same thing, to communicate something. It's super key that you are challenging your assumptions and assuming positive intent from others. Many times I've gone into a conversation between two people that are not getting along, and both of them had good intentions, but where it broke down was in the communication, and oftentimes it was a cultural or language barrier. So assume positive intent from people is going to set you up for success, and just getting that feedback, right? I think those are like the biggest things I can say. And I do recommend reading The Culture Map if you haven't yet. It's a great book. We recommend it a lot in the intern group. And really just, embracing the richness of working on a diverse team. All the things that you can learn is incredible. I think that for me personally, it's been incredible working with all of the diversity that I've been able to, and not just acting the way that I was raised or the way that I was taught was the right way to do things, and really broadening my worldview. And there are a lot of different ways to do something, and working with unique people is what makes us all stronger as a team. So just, embrace it at the end of the day.
I love that, Dana. Jacqueline, I wanted to, hear from you as well. What will you say in this sense, and why actually would companies choose to have a multicultural workplace? What sort of advantages do you think companies that are multicultural have versus those that aren't?
That's a good question. I'll take that. I've worked on products that are across the globe. So Uber is a product for anyone, anywhere to get through the magic of a button, a taxi. So we need people on our team that are from the places where we operate. It's that simple. Airbnb, if we have only a group of product managers from the United States, then what does it look like for someone from Australia or India that wants to get an Airbnb somewhere? We're going to miss the mark because we don't have a multicultural team. at Latam, we fly around the world. So if we only have people from Chile or Brazil on our teams, then we're going to make a product that only represents those people on our teams. So we have to create teams that look and feel like the places where we operate. And the world is globalized and we are not isolated by continent and language anymore. Google Translate works phenomenally for my dad to speak with my husband's family. And that operates on a scale of a magnitude so much bigger than just our families and just our small teams where we're at. So if we don't have diversity of people, religion, places, languages on our teams, we're missing out. And we need to always ask who's not at the table that should be here. Who needs to be represented that's not here. And as I build a team, that's one of the questions that I ask is who's not here that needs to be here. Is it gender? Is it experience levels? Is it places of the world? So that we have a team that brings diverse experiences to the table.
That's fantastic. Carolina, would you like to add anything to that, considering, yes, your company being very multicultural? What do you think are those benefits to those companies?
I agree 100% with what Jacqueline was mentioning. From having a diverse and inclusive work environment, it's no longer an option. It's no longer something that you do just to get bonus points. It's a necessity for companies around the world. Starting from what Jacqueline was saying, which I loved, is it gives you a global perspective, especially if you're operating in different markets. You have to understand your end customer or your clients, and in order to do that, you have to have diverse perspectives. Then just having different perspectives just enhances the creativity, innovation, and problem solving within your organization, because you have so many different perspectives. You're not always banking on one type of point of view. Different people will come up with different ideas at different points in time. So the more people you have in your team, the more diverse, whether it's gender, age, background, culture, nationality, you're going to have different inputs that are going to give you different perspectives for different solutions. And I think it also impacts, or at least like what I've seen, is like, I think it also enhances motivation and engagement within the team, especially if you feel that you are represented in the rest of the organization, that you have other people like you, but also everyone feels that way. The whole environment just becomes much more collaborative, and you can build strong relationships within the team as well, because everyone just feels more comfortable. And I think that that's very important to have in a work environment.
I obviously approach these questions a lot more with a people perspective as a human resources professional. So I like what you just said, Carolina, about feeling like you are being represented in leadership or in different levels, of management. A lot of times companies will have a team of people that work on different ways to engage the team. And if it's all managers who are, I don't know, white men, for example, not everyone's going to feel represented. So it's really important to get people from different teams, different genders, different age groups, so that everyone feels like that, and to make the solutions work, right? If you're trying to engage your team and look to even just something simple like having a holiday party or having some sort of employee gift, right? I mean, you need to understand what motivates the team and what was going to make people feel like, hey, like they get me, they understand me. So I like what you said there.
100%. Well, from personal experience, I am Colombian and I have worked with people from all over the world. And when I first moved to England, I kind of felt like what you said, Jacqueline. I was a minority, but also my English wasn't great, and my accent is forever going to be as it is right now. And that was for me some sort of a barrier into how can I connect with people. But it also goes, I think it's twofold. One is we need to work on our own self-confidence as well, because and understanding that we don't necessarily need to fit in a box of whatever that is, whether it's a certain accent or whatever. Like just here in this call, we have more than 20 countries represented. And so people are absorbing this information in a different way, having all your beliefs filtering this information. And on the other side, as you said, who are we missing or what I'm not seeing? Because it's something that is always there and we don't necessarily tend to see. For interns, because we are having also a lot of questions here from interns, how can they leverage these sort of experiences, let's say, working with different people, or if they have experiences abroad in different cultures? I'd like to start maybe with Carolina. How do you think they can leverage that?
Absolutely. I think when you are exposed to a multicultural experience, you have the choice, you have the opportunity to develop the skills that we talked about. I think throughout our conversation, Rena, Jacqueline, Johanna, and myself have mentioned that, you know, it gives you the ability to adapt, to be flexible. It helps you build resilience. It gives you the opportunity to build effective communication, to have a global perspective. So all of these are different skills that you are putting into your toolbox. You have a choice. You have the choice of taking advantage of the opportunity and strengthening or developing the skills. Some of these might be competences that are innate to you, that you were born with, that you have the opportunity to enhance. Some of these might be skills that you need to acquire, you would like to acquire. So you have the choice of, one, you can do it, or second, you choose not to do it. If you choose not to do it, that's obviously your choice. If you choose to do it, it's going to make you a better professional because you're adding those tools to your kit. And those are strengths that you can leverage and rely upon for the rest of your professional career. So especially if you are a young professional who doesn't have a lot of previous professional experience, maybe you've just left university or you're in the process of leaving university. When you go into a job interview or you're applying for a new role, you might not have all of that background experience to rely on. But you have this multicultural experience where you have acquired these skill sets, and you're going to have examples that you can use to illustrate how you possess the competency that role requires. So that's how you can leverage them. Then when, of course, you're in the role, in the day-to-day, to maximize your experience, to optimize what your day-to-day, you know, you're going to be in a situation where you have to start a new project. What skill set have you acquired that you can use there? Effective communication, looking at the diversity of the team and taking advantage or you know, of the different perspectives, understanding who you're working with, how they react to, or what resonates with them, so that you can make there can be better collaboration and the end results of the project can be better for everyone. And then as you progress in your career and you yourself become a team leader or a people manager, use that experience to foster even more diversity and inclusion within the team, because of all of the added benefits that we've discussed so far, like, you know, creative problem solving, innovation, better motivation, and more, right? So I think that those are different ways how you can leverage that multicultural experience in your professional career.
Rina, would you like to add anything to the conversation?
Yeah, I think that every experience is important. It helps you build as a professional, grow as a professional. I've made mistakes and I will continue to make mistakes as I continue to grow. I have assumed things that were not correct, that, you know, posed challenges for other people. One example that just comes to mind is I worked with a team in manufacturing at a food manufacturer in Boston. And we had a lot of employees from a country. It was a small island outside of Africa. They were refugees, and they did not know that they could speak up about something that was happening to them, because culturally, I don't know if it was specifically women or culturally at work, you just don't complain, you don't raise complaints, or else you could get fired. So they did not voice concerns that they had, and it took a lot of work to figure out. And I assumed everything was okay because I didn't ask enough questions. And now I know to ask those questions to make sure that I'm providing, a safe workplace for my team members. Of course, still learning along the way, but I've learned that I cannot assume that people operate the same way, right? Or that the norms in one country are similar to the country that I'm working in. So yeah, I just think that growing those skills and having those moments of learning have made me a better professional, and I still have a ways to go, but I'm always just trying to look for new opportunities to learn, and I'm trying to ask more questions along the way and ask the right questions. And that all helps to, those are things that everyone here can do in their next role and in their internships is grow and learn, and then that makes them stronger, and they can rely on those experiences that you had 10 years ago in a leadership role today, in my case, or in Jacqueline and Carolina's case.
Thank you, Rina. We have a question from Raman. Jacqueline, maybe let's start with you. What usually happens when inputs and perspectives clash between cultures?
I was reading that question and trying to think of an example, because it happens. So great question. Rena mentioned this a few minutes ago, but intention and impact is something I learned from therapy. And it's a great way to think about this is I ask, what's the intention? What's your intention? How do you want to feel in the ideal state? And I tend to lead by asking questions to seek understanding and explore the curiosity to better understand the root of the problem. And so my framework there for problem solving is definitely ask questions until you all together identify and align on the problem to make sure it's clear. And inside of that, one of the active listening principles that I love is repeat what you just heard to make sure you understood what they wanted to say. Sounds obvious, but it's not. And so by repeating, hey, I think you said this, is that right? Hey, is that what you understand too? To all be aligned on what that is. And then usually people want to find a common ideal state. It's just how you get there tends to be very different. And our strengths are so different. And how people think and process what they're thinking about and problem solving. And so giving people the space to use their strengths and lean into them to find a solution, it's never going to be a one size fits all. ChatGPT cannot do that yet. So, and so it requires slow, authentic, meaningful conversations to get to an ideal state. And that's it's in the same culture, it's in across cultures, but across cultures, I think the gift is that we know we need to communicate more, whereas within my majority culture, I assume more and I get in trouble more. And so I think the gift with working with people from other cultures and languages is knowing that there needs to be more thoughtful, meaningful conversations to solve problems.
Absolutely. And I think you've been mentioned multiple times. So ask a lot of questions, expect the best from the other person, or at least imagine that there is good intention on the other side. Because also I have had several of situations especially when it's written communication, that is the most difficult one, because if you have different languages, you are not seeing the person, you can't hear the tone of that person. So you are reading it with the tone that you are in that moment. So if you are altered, I don't know, if you're angry, whatever, or in a rush, you are reading it with that. It's just very, very hard. So I think if you can use I tend to use a lot of emojis or send sometimes audios, or if the conversation is going to be difficult, let's just have a call. Ideally, always with a video, like, so that the more information we can provide the other person about how we are feeling, how we are, the intention that we are giving in that communication is the better as well. What else do we have here? Let me just run quickly, because we have two questions combined related to company's culture. So maybe Rina, you can start, but we can all contribute. So one is, how can we foster an inclusive company culture that respects individual differences while understanding that we can't please everyone? And there is a comment also while you're thinking this answer from KM. I don't know what your name is, but KM, you're making a comment here on, I second that with the importance of having multicultural and understanding working environment. I'm currently residing in London, but as a nationality, I'm from Pakistan, and I have seen it very rare in corporate places to have a chance to represent my culture 100%. As my nationality is biased to get a job, but I believe we really need a platform to represent our ambition and creative mindset to create a sustainable workplace. But how can we achieve this?
I have an initial thought here. I think this is a really great question. Look for promoters in the first people that will help be your first allies and sponsors in a place where you're working. Who can come along with you and help you make the road smoother, bigger? Who can bring you along? Look for those people and build relationships. Usually you can feel it in your guatita, in your stomach, that there's someone that's ready to sponsor you, that's ready to mentor you, or that you can also sponsor them, and you can support and solve problems for someone else on your team or in your business or where you're at, because those small relationships all add up. And so that's like this from your perspective and your scope and what you can own. It's looking for people that are ready and willing to walk the walk with you. The sad reality is corporations are there for capitalism and to make money. And so the first thing that people think about is, how do we make more money? The second or third people, which is why Rena has a job, is how do we optimize these spaces for our people? How can we bring our talent and the people that make up our talent? How can we make this a great place to work? So luckily someone like Rena has a job but the first, it sucks, because first it's how do we make money? And then second, it's what about our people? So finding a place that says, hey, let's bring a bunch of great people together to do something great in the world. Those types of places tend to be more focused on people first and then building a business around great people. Those exist. They're harder to find. But what I loved about working at Airbnb is that our motto is build a world where everyone belongs. And we built a product around that. So how can we make a place where everyone belongs? So that core value drove decisions, and it was a driving principle around decisions and frameworks and processes and product launches. And so finding places where you as a person are first and the company is second is hard. So sometimes you have to make your own company and not be the intern, be the person that owns the company and drives the vision. Because at the end of the day, big companies and corporations are looking to make money for their stockholders.
I'll compliment what you just said really quick. Sorry, Joa, because also to have people employed, you do have to make money. So there is that like really hard balance, which is why I like what you said about, a company's vision and their core values and there being a people focus. At the Intern Group, we do have that. We have a people focus. It's, it's not perfect, right? There are always things we can do better. But at the end of the day, sometimes it does feel like the decisions that are made are not always as people friendly as you might want as the employee, because you still have to be a profitable business to keep everybody employed, right? So I'll just compliment what you said there, because I think that's an important point.
Yes, thank you for that, Rina. I would also say to KM, because I have felt like me, as a Colombian entering different places, saying I'm coming from Colombia, people have their own assumptions and sometimes make comments that obviously are not very welcome from me. We can also be the change ourselves, and you can, in the sense of, I don't know, but I kind of feel like an ambassador of my own country. And so wherever I am, I'm representing it, wherever I am, I can teach the world what the culture, what the talent that we have is, etc. So in a way, that's how we can all start. Start with yourself in that organization. And actually, I visited a host organization recently in London, and they didn't have an internship program before, but there was an intern from India who arrived, and actually she now set it up, and she's hiring other interns from India as well, because it's her own way of supporting her own community in London. So there's definitely lots of ways that no matter at what level of the organization you are, you can impact.
Joe, I just have a question for Jacqueline and Carolina. Do your companies have a group of people that work like a culture crew, a culture committee? All the companies I've worked for in the past have had a culture committee, whatever the name is, culture ambassadors or some group, so that people can, if they want to get involved. I'm thinking about the question that was asked from, I don't know who their name, KM, about, bringing their nationality and having a platform of representation. I think a culture committee or culture crew, whatever it's called, is a great way to get involved and to help push changes in the organization. Carolina and Jacqueline, do your companies have that? And have you worked with other companies that also have those? I find them quite common.
On my team now at Latam, I have a subject matter expert of culture. She reports directly to me, and her job is to, I gotta think in Spanish and say it in English. To make the core values alive and concrete in people's way of working. And so her job right now is to do that. So it's an area of the business. It's about 600 or so people strong. And so her job is to drive initiatives and programs that make core values a central part of our framework and ways of working. So that's at Latam now. At Airbnb and at Uber, there were also committees of culture and ways of working and operations. Sometimes that was bringing margaritas on a cart around the office floor. Sometimes that was making sure we had ping pong balls at the ping pong table. And sometimes it was at Uber, I was part of a group of women that sat with the Uber CEO and founder, Travis Kalanick, to drive better policies around women that were pregnant and make sure that our policies reflected the core values of the company. And so I got to sit down with Travis and share my concerns and challenges as a new mom. And then we worked, and then he took those to the head of people and operations, and they made changes that made an incredible impact on paternity and maternity leave. So, yeah.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. Carolina.
Yeah, and at my company, it's the approach is slightly different. In our Chile office, we have about 25 nationalities represented. So it's a very multicultural office in itself. So it's kind of like not organically just happened that we didn't need to have a club. There was like a lot of integration and a lot of cultural sharing just happening organically, especially when we were 100% in the office, a few years ago. We do have as well a global team that focuses on diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it sets our global policy and approach towards that area. And then that, of course, trickles into the local area as well. And that's a little bit more on the corporate kind of side of things. But then on the more social or more fun, if I may say, side of things, we do have also a global group that's called We Connect. And one of the areas that they focus is that kind of like cultural integration. So again, it's like a global approach with some local practices. So for example, here, like we celebrate the Chilean independence when we can. We also used to have an event that was more food and music related, that was called International Festival. And we had, it was like for charity, and then we would like collect funds that then we would later give to other organizations, where we would showcase the different nationalities represented in the Chile office. We haven't been able to do that event for the last couple of years since we've been returning to the office in hybrid mode, but definitely in our plans to pick it back up. So yeah, absolutely, if we can create the challenge. But the important thing is that where we found most success is that when these initiatives are also employee led, like when they necessarily happen from a corporate perspective, they're not going to be sustainable. You can't really mandate participation. So we found most success when it's groups that are, we will provide the support and the resources, we can get them started, but then really are taken to the next level by the employees ourselves. And I count myself as an employee as well. Like I've been part of, the fund council, I've been part of the international council, the women initiatives group. But at the end, like somebody else needs to take it forward, because you really want these programs to thrive. So coming back to the comment that, Jacqueline and Joanna were making a couple of minutes ago as well, it's you yourself can create these platforms and be the agent of change. It's not just, of course, the companies should foster inclusive environments, should create these platforms, but not every company is going to do that. So if you are in a place where you would like to stay, but you don't have the resources that you need, you can also be that person that implements the change and starts the practices. Why not? That's how we started a lot of good practices here in EvalueServe Chile that later became global policies. And it all started with someone raising their hand and saying, why don't we do X activity? So why not?
Thank you for that. I know we only have 5 minutes, and I know, Jacqueline, you need to leave fairly soon. So I want to ask you before you leave, we have Zachary shared your experience. Thank you for sharing your experience. So you are leading an LGBTQ2IA plus affairs group. So everybody is around the same common goals, but inside the group, there is a lot of issues. And so he's asking, how can we all have a shared group, a goal? How can we pass all these politics and kind of conflict that is inside the group so that it can be a more productive team? What would you say to Zach, Jackie?
Oh, I was muted. Sorry. That sucks that you have not yet been able to get to a shared common vision, and that it sucks. Like, and it's a hard reality that happens. I think one of the things that I would see how you can bring in someone that's not involved in the group, who could come in and lead a vision and goal setting and like heart-to-heart session that helps to realign and find the common ground and understand what you can do together and what you should leave at the door and pause, which is really hard sometimes. But sometimes if your LGBTQ spaces are incredibly heartwarming, incredibly passionate, great, fully inclusive groups. And so there is a common thread there somewhere. And hopefully the leadership group can find a way and space with hopefully maybe an outside facilitator, moderator, to find that common ground and create that safe space to have difficult, deep conversations with trust and empathy at the core. It's not easy. And I've never been in that situation, so I can't fully understand it. But what I can see is that there's a chance that maybe a solution is like bringing in someone from outside that could lead a discussion, a deep heart-to-heart discussion, so that you all can find out there is a common ground, because people are showing up, people are there, and there's something to learn from what's not working to be able to inform what can work. And with that, I have to go.
Thank you, Jacqueline, for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you here. We'll stay for 2 or 3 more minutes. See you very soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. It's been great being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And actually, with that question, Zachary, I think you just gave us a very good topic for a future discussion of conflict resolution. This is just like so difficult. I have a lot of examples. I was actually discussing with a good ex-colleague about maybe even sharing openly workplace kind of conflict we had and how we went through it, how we solved it, etc. So stay tuned. My colleague Manami already shared the link. So please go there, link, click the link and you can leave us your details to receive the certificate, but also there is a space on suggestions. Give us suggestions on topics so that we can create other spaces. Before we go, I'd like to kind of wrap up with Rina, with Carolina. Anything you'd like to add, any advice you'd like to give to all the people that we have here in the call around multicultural workplaces?
Go ahead, Carolina.
Yeah, I was like waiting for you to go ahead, but yeah, absolutely. I would say, just to wrap up, I would say stay curious, be open to learning from everyone. Do not assume or challenge your assumptions. And I loved what, I think Rina was the first one to say it, but it resonated throughout the presentation. Always assume positive intent. And this is great advice, not just for a multicultural experience, but just in general in a professional setting. So those would be my key takeaways.
Thank you.
I'm fully aligned with what Carolina said, to be honest. But do your research. There are a lot of great resources out there. I mean, Joa just put one in the chat. She put a book that she recommends in the chat. Again, I've mentioned the culture map is a very good book, and there's probably hundreds more that are out there. And just educate yourself, especially if you know you're going to be working with a specific population. Educate yourself. That gives you an extra edge. That's going to set you apart in your internship from probably other interns, and will show your level of curiosity, that you want to empathize with people, and that you are really hungry to grow your career. And I think that will make all the difference for you guys.
Absolutely. I will just wrap it up as well with one thing that was mentioned a lot in is empathy. Like, we are all here with our own strengths, weaknesses, stories, etc. So think always that other person you are communicating, whether it's your boss, your colleague, whoever that person is also a human being that has a lot of different things, lots of different situations going on that you have no idea about. And if we start from that place, then it's a lot easier, let's say, the communication. It really has been a pleasure being with all of you today. I can't wait to, and thank you so much, Rina, Jacqueline, who's gone, and Carolina, for spending time with us, sharing all your insights. We would love to see you in a future event, so stay tuned. And thank you, everybody. Have a lovely rest of your evening, afternoon, or morning, whatever you are.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, Rina. Bye, everyone.